Hello, the Gold Coast Sunscast is back for another week to talk all about the Gold Coast Suns. My name is Shane, and joining me again is the number one Suns supporter of Victoria, Tom. How's the southern weather treating you down there, mate?
G'day, Shane. Actually, not too bad. You don't expect too much in Melbourne, so if the sun comes out, you sit in it for 5 minutes and know that it might be the last time for another week or three. It's always nicer when your team wins because you don't cop a lot of crap at work on Monday morning. Unfortunately, I've been copping crap every Monday morning lately, so let's get into it and have a chat about the weekend game, eh?
Yeah, let's jump into it. So, Suns flew over to China to play Port Adelaide. We lost by 40 points, 6 goals, 6-42 to Port Adelaide's 11 goals, 16-82. There were no multiple goal scorers, and it was pretty close up until around three-quarter time. And then, to be honest, I've never seen the players look so exhausted in a football match after three-quarter time.
Yeah, look, the power, the stronger bodies, their average age is much older than ours. They basically outmuscled us is probably the best way to describe it. And when you're being outmuscled for three quarters, there's nothing left in the last quarter to come back. And they didn't put us away. I mean, they kicked, three goals in the last quarter. And, I mean, in fairness, we only mustered one goal in the whole second half. So that, as you say, that observation of them, they probably could have beaten us by 60 points. Let's face it, they had a few really easy shots in front of goal that they missed. So this wasn't a close one, but it wasn't. It didn't feel like the Eagles game or the Crows game or even the Demons game last week. It felt like a closer game, and it looked like the effort was there. And there were times in the game where you thought possibly is it on? Could it happen? And Port were too good.
Yeah, watching the game, I felt a lot of the times it was just coming down to luck with Port Adelaide missing so many shots on goal. But at the same time, the effort from the Gold Coast was there right the way through till about three-quarter time. I thought the boys were in and under, trying their guts out, and were always within a sniff, and they just weren't able to get away with it in the end.
Whole lot. If you're only kicking 6 goals, then there's something wrong with that department. But the fact that in the end the contested possessions were quite even, and I have to say very early on the inside 50s weren't actually coming, and then they came. It's just that as the game went on, we were doing less and less with them. So that's the unfortunate part of it. We took one mark inside 50. They took 9 marks inside 50, which is actually they're both terrible results, but shows that at least our defenders were doing a really good job. Leslie completely shut down Jack Watts, who had one lucky goal. Even May shutting down Gray. It takes May out of the rest of the game, and Gray did beat him a few times, but couldn't really punish him on the scoreboard for it. So what do you do? They're a better team. They got too many game breakers, and they're pretty familiar with us as well. They know how to break us down. Much better game this time round than the last two efforts. So if we played them on neutral territory again, and it wasn't in bloody China, or dare say played them at Metricon, I think this game could even go the way of the Suns.
Yeah, possibly, but we're never going to win a game if our scoring is going to stay the way it is. Granted, we did lose Jack Martin just before the game due to illness, but we just don't have any firepower in the forward line at the moment.
Look, I'd say the best forward line that we have, 6 of them, if you were to name the 6 best forwards we have, none of them were playing in China. And that's massive. No Wright, no Lynch, no Day, no Martin. Archie was playing in the back line. He might be a good guy to put in the forward line. No Lemons. We got to Hall often plays forward. We've got to get a forward line that's going to strike fear into our opponents.
Yeah, we do. I think we've got it. We've just got to get them all on the park and performing at the same time. Not too many teams are going to be able to combat the three tall forward of Day, Lynch, and Wright taking contested marks and kicking goals, especially when you've got your Lemons, your Ainsworth, and your Achie at the bottom, crumbing and keeping the tackle pressure up.
Yeah. Although Ainsworth, maybe he's not such a crack forward as much as crack midfielder, because he's been going so well there. But look, that just means there's next man up. Probably someone like Heron, who did a terrific job on the weekend for a rookie, and got his first goal. Some players play 10 or 11 games before they get their first goal, or it never happens for them, or he saw his opportunity and he played his role, and which it was a kind of a you could see that it was a kind of a thing that the senior players took it over. So I thought Sexton, in setting up that goal, could have taken it himself, but he did the unselfish thing and hand passed it over, and Heron was right where he needed to be. So I don't think Heron would be lost in any forward line we put together.
No, it was a solid debut. Nothing too special, but that goal really would have made the day for Heron and his family. So it was good to see him get on board. It was also good to see the Suns fly his family over to China. We speculated last week we doubt we'd see a debutant in China, partly due to the fact it is overseas and a bit of a harsh thing to bring a debutant in with his family not around. But the Suns came to the game and brought his family with him.
Yeah, that was a real. That's the kind of thing that shows the new approach of the Suns with Dew in the team. He cares about relationships, and they never would have sent the kid over without at least some family or something. But it was pretty funny. Did you actually watch the video of the moment that his family surprised him in the hotel?
I think I caught it on the broadcast during the game at halftime. I think they might have showed it.
Yeah, and I mean that's just really nice, and he won't forget that. And he's a North Queenslander as well, so he's come down to the Gold Coast as a very young kid, played a couple of seasons of NEFL and managed to get a rookie spot, and bang, he's made his AFL debut. So good on him.
Well, I might have to start the Queenslander chant at the next Suns home game. We've got that many Queenslanders in the team now.
Oh, I think, what do we have, 7 or something playing on the? We've got 12 in the squad. I worked out the other day. There's 20% of our list is they're not necessarily Gold Coasters, but they are 20% are from the academy. So we're doing very well to build the list, not just through the draft, but through the academy. And I'm pretty excited the next couple of drafts just to see how many academy. And it looks like we're going to have 2 or 3 more North Queenslanders in the mix for a draft spot or a rookie spot at the end of the year. So don't forget about North Queensland. We played up there for 7 years in a row. Sorry, 8 seasons in a row. And now we've got the agreement with Townsville coming up. And there are players from Townsville and Cairns in the academy who are some of the best talents.
Yeah, definitely. Ever since the Suns came into the competition, the youth in Queensland playing AFL has started to rise up and take part. We're finding more and more players that are legitimate AFL players and not just local hacks. So moving on, we've got the top 5 from that game. I started with Jared Harbrow with the 5 votes. I thought his run-off half-back was fantastic. What about you?
Oh, yeah, loved Harbs. And whenever you can see him get more of the ball than usual, I mean, his best games ever historically, he could get 20 to 30 possessions and really make a difference. It was ironic that he had the burst ball, because he belted the thing, he kicked the thing 20 odd times by then. No wonder he'd kick the air out of it. And a smart decision by the umpires to shut everything down and just give him a real ball and start again rather than give Port a free shot or ball it up. Loved Hubs.
We'll go with Jared Witts with the 4 votes. I just thought he dominated Ryder, really put him out early, and Ryder gave away some stupid free kicks. He was just out of it. Aaron Hall, 3 votes. I thought he was great, really providing some dash and run off the half-back flank. Ainsworth was great running through the middle. He has been for the last 2 weeks, and it seems to be a more natural position for him. And Nick Holman, I thought he created a lot of contested pressure and tackles. It was just a great performance from the mature ager.
For my 5 votes, I've also gone for Harbs. He's a great player. I hope he's one of those players who can keep up this kind of form for several years into his 30s, because if we lost him, it'd be a real, he's a foundation player. It'd be, we're kind of resigned to Riccitelli losing him because, he had such a horrific injury. But Harbs, you hope Harbs is around for another 3 or 4 seasons at least. Anyway, I've gone for Hawley for the 2 votes. For the second spot. Hall playing out of defence is doing a really good job. He'll go for a run. He's making tackles, which is really important, and he's taking intercept marks. I think the commentators mentioned that they like what they see with his return from being dropped, and that he loves the ball, so he's always going to go and get it, and he's quite keen on sharing it around. I don't agree that his delivery into forward 50 is always that great, but at the same time, I don't think anybody's delivery into forward 50 was all that good. I've gone for Lockie Weller for my 3rd place. Not so many touches, but whenever he did get it, it was in desperation. Like he had that. He was one of the players who was switched on and was determined to try and get a win. He made a hell of a lot of tackles for someone who's not that big. The Gold Coast side was a good tackling side on the weekend. That was one feature that I think we are doing really, really well. But one thing I always look for is goal assists. Now, we only had 6 goals in our whole performance, and Weller's set up 2 of those and kicked the goal himself. So when it comes to how are we going to score 100 points a game to try and win games, Weller's one of those guys who's got to play a bit further up. A lot of people didn't like him playing in the across halfback. Well, Hall's taken that job, so shift Weller up a little bit more, and there you go. 4th place, Jared Witts is in the top 5 of every single game this year. Sometimes he's unbackable. He's so good. He had 43 hitouts, and they're no slouch. Paddy Ryder's no slouch. They actually beat us slightly in the hitouts. Port did, but that's by playing 2 guys against 1, and Ryder is one of the best. I think there are going to be games later in the year where Witts is going to come out and absolutely smash another ruckman like we saw against the Bulldogs, but this time we'll capitalise on it. So the final vote for me goes also to Nick Holman. I've been really critical of him. He still doesn't have the best disposal, but he gets a lot of contested possessions. He's getting clearances, which is really important, and he's not dropping off in the tackles. So I think he's coming pretty close to first in the whole competition for most tackles. So he deserves some credit, because realistically, if he can't keep his place in the first 22 for the whole year, he's not going to get a contract for the next year.
The scoring let us down as we only kicked 6 goals, but maybe we can bring in some of the scoring from our reserves. The reserves kicked 11 goals. So let's touch on the reserves while we're down here.
Yeah,
Darwin.
You go for it.
So, Darwin beat Gold Coast 17 goals, 13, 115 to 11 goals 12, 78. So College Asney had 39 disposals. He was marked best on ground. Barlow with 46 disposals and 9 clearances. And Will Powell kicked 3 goals.
And 3 goals in one quarter, in the second quarter, I might add. I actually switched it off just the beginning of the fourth quarter. Even though it was still pretty close, you could see that the Suns were done. I couldn't watch it anymore. So essentially, they're kind of shadowing the first team. The fact that the fourth quarters are a real problem for both the seniors and the reserves means they're probably looking forward to this break and trying to work out how they're going to get that fitness, because you can't exactly just do what the old coaches used to do in the old days and just punish them at practice during the week, because then they're stuffed. Something to remember too is we have a top 6 players that are rated by the NEFL, and our first 2 were Colo and Barlow and Powell, but the next set Jacob Dawson got 39 possessions and 6 clearances. He was awesome, and he's sort of playing in that same role that Hall was playing, kind of a bit of a sweeper across half back. And Archie was trying to play that role, but he was bloody rubbish. Archie had 12 clangers on the weekend. But anyway, back to the NEFL. Notable that 2 of our best players were Boki, who the commentators kept calling Boke, but unless they know something I don't, I think it is Boki. And he didn't get all that many possessions. He was just really stylish with what he did. And what he did do, and he was playing in defence, so he was often running it or passing it out of defensive 50 and taking the pressure off, because the Thunder are one of the best scoring teams in a comp. So we always knew they were going to try and score 100 points, and they got there in the end. But it was kind of a bit of a rush, a bit of a late rush of goals that got them there. And interesting that the 5th best player named was Connor Nutting, who I mention every week because he's just a great player. He's ready for senior footy. He had 9 total possessions, but the reason that they've named him such a good player, as one of the best, is because he was marking a bloke who was taller than him, probably 30 kilos heavier than him, and is one of the top goal scorers, Ewing. One of the top goal scorers in the whole NEFL, and Nutting kept him to very few possessions and very few marks and really not much until the very end when the floodgates opened. But it wasn't on Nutting that the guy got a bag of 5 in the end. He did very, very well. This is a different team to last week that got humiliated. A lot of not even as many AFL players, but that's not the point. A lot of our very good academy players, not our best academy players, we're playing our bottom 12 academy players. Now we're sort of playing our middle 15, and we've got yet another tier of very, very high quality academy players who are just being rested after their beginning to the season, and they'll begin to come back in dribs and drabs. And within the next month and a half, there'll be 10 blokes who will be coming back into the NEFL side regularly after they finish national champs.
That's actually a perfect segue onto what I want to talk about now, which is player management, because they're obviously managing our academy kids that are coming through, which is fair enough. In most cases, they're 16, 17-year-old kids. Our season so far, we should have been managing our players throughout the year. I expected a lot more changes and rotations per game than what we currently have, especially when we had guys like Barlow and Brodie on fire in such early parts of the year, not getting a game. If they'd rotated in, who knows, maybe our fourth quarters wouldn't be as bad as what they are at the moment. After all, we've only won, I think, one fourth quarter this year. And surely that was probably against Carlton or North Melbourne.
think it was North Melbourne actually. I think the Carlton game could have been a blowout, and they kept it close. Brisbane closed the gap and could have drawn it on the siren. Look, I totally agree with you. I think Nutting has been close to getting playing in the senior team, so he might have been someone who they could have brought in just to rest someone. They kept on insisting on putting Rosa back in, which, it worked sometimes. It didn't work this time around. You have to wonder if he's now had 3 separate injuries this year, if Rosa's really worth playing at all in the second half of the year, or just keeping him warmed up in the reserves. And if he can keep fit, then that's a different story. Barlow, we don't know what reason. It's not. He doesn't just rack up the statistics. They're good statistics. They're rebounds, getting us out of trouble out of defensive 50. He's the best player at delivering the ball into 50, into the forward line. He always has the most clearances. He's good for a goal or 3. He's not a big tackling machine. He's not a big pressure. He's more of a hang off. But one of the biggest criticisms that anyone has of the Suns midfield is that they're all in there underneath the pack, and when the ball comes out, there's no one out there to pass it to. And other teams seem to be a lot more relaxed with the fact that their 2 go-getters will get inside and hopefully get the ball. And Barlow's not going to just chuck out his whole way of playing just to play the new Juice style. So I think that might be the clash there, that he's being told to go back and play a certain style, and his way of responding to the coach is like, well, look, I'm just going to get 40 touches for a bit of a joke because it's so easy, and you got to pick me, but they're not.
I never took Barlow as being that sort of a player. I always viewed him as being a team player when he was at Fremantle, doing what was necessary. That also brings a point, is if all of our players are inside mids, contesting, getting into the pack, playing Jew's game style, we still surely need at least 1 or 2 on the outside, and that's where Barlow or even Aaron Hall. I didn't agree with Aaron Hall being dropped at the start, but in the end, after the performance we've seen from Aaron Hall in the last 2 games off half back, I can probably get behind that now. But it would have been nice to have him playing on the wing, running through, receiving the ball from the inside mids and delivering it into the forward line with a bit of speed, because when the ball's coming fast inside 50, that's when our forwards have the best chance to score.
Yeah, and this is the way the whole game's changing, and we're changing with it. We just don't have the right forwards. I think you're absolutely right. I'm not, just on Barlow for a second. I'm not suggesting that he's a selfish player. I'm just suggesting more that he plays in a certain way, and Jew wants him perhaps to exhibit other things. And there's some sort of tension there between what Barlow can really do. I don't think he can do any more. And if that's not good enough, then there's something else going on. You're quite right. There's not been enough rotation. Other players who I'd suggest, we did see Spencer come into the team. Spencer's probably at this stage, he would be stiffed if they brought Kolodjasny back before Spencer. Colo's obviously a quality player. I just think that he probably needs to find a different position. And you were just talking about Hawley being good at running down the wings. But you know what? I think it's probably worth mentioning that Kolodjasny would make a good winger. I know that he's always been in defence, but he's just not stepped up as a defender in that fashion. Whereas
I think several years ago, I do remember hearing a few articles about Kolodjasny and how they planned to move him into the midfield as a winger sort of position. But at the time, I think we'd just gotten Rosa,
right,
and that's where Rosa was supposed to be playing.
Yeah,
So I think Kolajasny is supposed to be moving into the wing. He's a good user of the ball, can deliver it into side 50, especially now when we've still got Harbrow, Hanley as well. And Aaron Hall seems to be playing well off half back, so we should keep him there.
absolutely. He's
And
found a new home, and I don't think we should mess with that because it's given him the confidence, and it's given the coach the confidence that he's in the right spot. Because I'll always say Hall's one of our best players. There are people who think that he should be traded at the end of the year. People who are screaming for him to be dropped even after the first couple of games when we were actually winning footy. There are people who hate him with a passion because he's a coach killer. He even did it on the weekend when you know he'd make a mistake and you'd just be like, oh mate, you've been so good all game, and now you've just did that. But it just comes from if he's gonna be at least getting the ball, you know, almost 30 times in one game, he's gonna have some really bad clangers. That's Hawley. He's gonna shank the ball out of bounds. He's gonna kick it straight to an opposition player. But for all those that he does 28 other good things, and people can't really give him the credit. So keep Hawley in the back line. We need a cool head down there. Jack Martin was sort of popping up and doing a bit of that so far this year, but Hall's got that talent set, got that skill set.
that's why I think we keep Hall down there. Jack Martin and even Callum Archie, keep them in the forward line or in the midfield. I think we've got enough half backs that can use the ball coming out. We need to probably get our decision makers in the midfield and in the forward line to try to convert some of these inside 50s or give our forwards a fighting chance to score.
Yeah, the thing with Archie playing in the forward line is it seems like a little bit of a wasted talent, but what he's best at in the forward line, he's not going to go taking one of those pack marks when you just belt it in, but he is going to pop up on his own, lose his man, and pop up on his own. And if someone who's a Suns player who's got the ball either from a mark or a free kick or whatever, who's just a bit too far out to score, Archie has this uncanny knack of just popping up, and when they trust him because they know that he's a good marker of the ball, they'll belt it his way. And then anything that's within about 40 metres, Archie's got like an 80% record. He's a fantastic kicker goal. He was rubbish on the weekend. He made 12 clangers. I've never seen a player make 12 clangers, and he's only been credited with 11 possessions. How's that even possible?
I was going to say, I didn't think he had that many possessions.
You know, he just had a rubbish game. It wasn't for lack of trying. He's even had a ding at goal at some point, you know, and missed. And usually he doesn't miss. I don't know if he should be dropped or just give it to him that he had a bad. Maybe he and Jack went out the night before and had some dim sims and they weren't any good. And Jack pulled out, but Callum decided he'd brave it out. Some explanation, you know. But anyway, there's a very very good feeling around a lot of our probably maybe top 15 players, but you can sort of see that there's a few other players who they're just sort of making up the numbers, really, whether it's through they're too young or too old or they're playing with injury or they're just out of form. It's not a complete 22, and I think we have the players on the list to put out a best 22 every week that we're unable to do right now.
Well, we're running short on time, so we better speed this along. I just want to quickly touch on what your impressions are for how we've travelled so far in the first 9 rounds of this season.
Yeah, look, I've broken it down into games that we should win, games that we go into that are winnable because we do have a good list, and games that really, in hindsight, we didn't have much chance, but we're optimistic. So I'll start with the should wins. We won 2 of the should wins, and we lost 1. So we've beaten Carlton, we've beaten the Lions, and we didn't beat the Bulldogs, and we should have won that game. We should have won it for a number of reasons, um, but with the team that we had, still did well. But I'm going to put in a should wins there because the Dogs just aren't going that great. They're a very good team that aren't going that great. They're probably similar to us in a lot of ways, and we should have won it. The games that were winnable, well, we won one of those against North Melbourne, and that was, that didn't seem like the biggest deal at the time, but looking at where they are on the ladder, not if North Melbourne had beaten us, they'd be in the top four. So I don't think it's a big stretch to say that North Melbourne's a very good team. So we won it. It was winnable. We won it. Good on us. It was in Cairns, so good for us to keep having that good record that we've got up in Cairns. But I will say that games that we played against Fremantle, well, again, we sold our home game. So that's why I say it would have been a winnable because it's supposed to be a home game. We didn't end up getting flogged in the end. They were better than us at the end of the game, but we were competitive. But we should have won it. And this Port Adelaide game, it's a game we've sold to China, and it should have played it at Metricon. And if the Freo and the Port games were at Metricon, then they're winnable games that and possibly even should win games. So getting onto the third group of three, which of course is the games we played against West Coast, Adelaide Crows, and Melbourne Demons, and those guys are all in the top four. So we did okay against them. It wasn't like the Eagles were getting thrashed all day, but we turned up. And we put a score on the board against them. They put a big score on the board, but at least we kept trying to score goals. The Crows were just better, and Melbourne were just better. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, I see it's pretty similar. I did view at the start of the season. I viewed all of our first 5 games as winnable. I didn't think West Coast would be where they were, and I didn't expect Fremantle to be as strong as what they was early in the season, but they proved me wrong. They were always sort of up in the air, chances of winning as well, being over in Perth. The round 6 game v Adelaide, I knew we had no chance of that one, and the Dogs game I thought was winnable as well. I also thought the Melbourne game was winnable, but Melbourne just happened to find the rich vein of form in the last few weeks heading into us, and they carried it on.
I'll tell you what, there's a bit of a roughie going around. If Tom Lynch leaves scenarios, Tom McDonald from Melbourne, from the Demons, he was the difference. Would you agree?
Yeah, he kicked 5 goals. I mean, it was a 10+ goal flogging, but
true.
He was a strong target. He was a strong target, and I think that created opportunity for a lot of their smaller forwards to get in there and crumb for goals. Ever since he came back into that Melbourne side, he's been a strong focal point for them.
He'd look good in a Gold Coast jersey.
I'd rather keep Tom Lynch, but if I don't have a choice, yeah.
Yeah. This is it. He could turn around tomorrow and say he's leaving, and I think we need a mature fella. We could always try and get Josh Jenkins, but he's getting a bit long in the tooth. But he's a Queenslander. But anyway, back to your analysis.
I think we probably should have won at least one more game than what we did, but you can't be too upset. I'd say we're probably about right about where we are. The only disappointing thing so far from this season is the statistics of our turnovers and our disposal efficiency and our marks inside 50 and our contested marks in general. They're all the worst in the league. We're 17th for goals in the league, and it showed. The only games that we've actually kicked over 10 goals, we've won.
Yeah, it's the Bulldogs won a premiership averaging less than 100 points a game, and the Tigers won a premiership with a very, very good defensive average. So if you're going to compare us to the best, we need to bring our defensive. We haven't given up the most points by any stretch. The games that blow out a little bit, we tend to do that. But we're averaging on defence. We're averaging less than 100 a game, which is pretty good. We're just rubbish.
It doesn't help though when we're averaging 60 points to kick a game.
Yeah, this is the point. Well, it's a little bit better than that, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. So we need to kick more goals, and if we can bring our defensive, we don't really need to do that much with defence. When you're kicking goals, they aren't kicking goals. So if you're kicking 5 goals more in a game, they're not going to score 100 points. So you can bridge the gap in by offence being your best defence.
Well, to round out my assessment, I'm quite happy with the way the club is going with Ju's game plan, and that game plan is tackles, in contested possessions and clearances. So we're doing well. We probably just need to use our inside 50s a bit better, but our tackles inside 50, we're third in the comp. So, I mean, that's a side that we haven't seen the Gold Coast Suns play. That's a their game we haven't seen them play since they came into the competition, and it's a very refreshing change. Just one last thing I want to know is, what do you think about the China experiment? And do you think that's it?
Yeah, it's been fun. I think that we'll probably strengthen our sponsors. We've got Huawei already. If our club management has been doing the right thing and making those partnerships over there, then everything from as community, as the Gold Coast Suns football club, as a community-minded entity, if they can do something to boost tourism to the Gold Coast from Shanghai, then that's fantastic, right? But as corporate citizens, we've sort of done our duty. We've done our duty by the AFL by selling 2 of our home games and getting flogged both times. And now we've got to start thinking, well, what does the Gold Coast deserve from the Gold Coast Suns? And fans want 11 games at Metricon Stadium, and the bottom line of the club that financially needs not just 11 games, but memberships for 11 games and crowd attendances for 11 games and merchandise and all that kind of stuff, as well as, for Metricon as a stadium. Now that the Com games have been and gone, Metricon as a stadium needs events. So I think we concentrate on doing other things. China can, from what I've heard down here in the Melbourne media, there's quite a few Melbourne clubs that worry about their games against Port Adelaide because they don't draw a crowd. So if you got someone like Western Bulldogs, they'd be happy at taking a game to China or giving a home game, because they play 15 games in Melbourne anyway. So the 16th one can go to China, and Port can go. But I should also say, Port Adelaide, you know what they're like. You've been an Adelaide fan. Port Adelaide think they're entitled to absolutely everything. If I'm Gillon McLachlan, I send 2 completely different teams over there next year, and maybe in 2 or 3 years bring back the Port and the Suns game, or send one of them back.
Yeah, possibly. I hope we never play in China again. I understand the reasoning behind it for money and sponsorships, all the financial stuff that goes with the football club. But in the end, the Gold Coast need to focus on the Gold Coast and, to a lesser extent, Northern Queensland. But I just think that this is it. The Suns need to focus on the Gold Coast, and especially with the media helping our cause by pushing a Victorian club to take up the whole China issue. Well, let them. They can go and do it. We'll be better off without it. So I'd be looking forward to seeing 11 games of footy again back at Metricon, or 10 if we have to send one up to Cairns. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I remember for a number of years we had 13 games in Queensland, and it didn't make a big difference in those years as far as getting us into the finals or anything. But you look at the big clubs, the big interstate clubs in the other states, the other non-Victorian states, they've each got 12 games guaranteed. Now we're talking about teams that regularly make the finals, like Sydney and the Giants lately. The Dockers a few years back were regularly making finals. Eagles always seem to be in the frame. Port and the Crows lately have been in the finals. They have stadium deals that guarantee that they'll play X amount of games. They'll have 12 games in their own state. So we need to do that. We can play in Brisbane for that extra game. So 11 games at Metricon is important. But if we can buy a game off a Victorian team to play in Cairns or in Townsville, we don't have to pay for it. Gil McLaughlin will open his checkbook for that, and we've got a fairly good record in those games, don't we? Again, we've won a few of them in Cairns, so I'd prefer to see someone else play their home game there, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage if we can get a Victorian side to play us up in Cairns or something, and that's preferably the way it will go.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough for today. Thanks for joining me again, Tom, and I'll chat to you next week.
Yeah, thanks, Shano. Good chat, and look forward to the bye week. But before the Geelong game, we'll have a chat about what's going to happen in that game, because there's quite a lot on the line for Gaz's big return.
Yes, that will be a big talking point. Well, you can catch me at 32bitshane, at 32bitshane on Twitter, 32bitshane@gmail.com, and 32bitshane on Facebook. And Tom?
Yep, catch me 17er on Big Footy. Happy to have a bit of a chat on our Sunscast thread.
Yes, I'm also Sunners on Big Footy. Thanks for reminding me, Tom. All right, have a good week, and I'll chat to you next week. Bye.
Thanks. See ya.